Hi, everyone. Welcome to our webinar all about visualizing your journey with conversational data. I'm Alice, Product Marketing Director here at Dashbot, and I'm so excited to have our two experts here today, Ben and Henry. Welcome, Ben and Henry. Before we get started, we'd love to hear from you today throughout today's session. We have our Q&A at the bottom, so please be sure to add your questions in the Q&A. This is also live, so we welcome conversations in our chat, and we'll send you the recording and recap after this webinar. But first, we want to give you a huge welcome to our webinar. We'd love to see in the chat where everyone is from. So go ahead and drop it in the chat. Let's see. Well, I'm not sure if I'm seeing anything in the chat. Is anyone else seeing anything yet? Got Austin representing Austin here. Well, we'll give us a quick intro because we got some people from interesting places over here today.
Yeah, hey everyone. Again, my name's Henry. I am based here out of San Francisco or the Bay Area in California. Lived here for pretty much 20 years of my life. And so I would consider myself to be a local. And I've been working with conversational AI for the past 5 years. I'm helping different companies and teams really mature their conversational AI programs. And so I'm very interested in diving into today's topic. And I'm really excited to share some of the new ideas that we've been thinking about here at Dashbot.
What's up, guys? Hope you're doing well. My name is Ben. I am a full stack engineer here at Dashbot. I've been working here for about 4 years, helping to develop the platform that we have.
Nice. Well, thank you so much, Henry and Ben. I'm Alice. I'm currently in beautiful Honolulu in Hawaii. This is a picture of my trip from last year where we hiked Coco Head. And if you haven't seen the picture before, it's a very steep hike. It's off an abandoned railroad track. And it reminds me of why I'm here in this space. It's a new journey for me, as it is for most, but it's an exciting one to experience here in conversational data. So with that, I'd love to hear a little bit more about you. And we'll start our first poll here today. We want to hear from you around where you are right now in visualizing your user journey. Where are you generating your data visualizations today? Thank you, Eric, for launching the poll. And we'll give it another few seconds. Looks like the chat is enabled, wasn't enabled earlier, but welcome to Palo Alto. Feel free to drop it in the chat. All right, and let's see the poll.
Wow.
Oh, wow. What do you think, Henry?
Yeah, I mean, I talked to a lot of customers today, even today, so I'm not that surprised that it's majority spreadsheets. I'm hoping that some takeaways from today's webinar can change that perspective, but just my initial takeaway.
Nice. Well, that's super cool. Thank you so much for sharing, everyone. And welcome as we see people rolling in still. So we'll go ahead and get started with the fireside chat. We're going to hear from Ben. Ben, thank you so much for being here.
What's up, guys? Well, good to be here.
Yeah, Ben's one of our Dashbot engineers, and he's here to answer some of my top questions I have for him around how to understand user journeys with conversational data. So first of all, Ben, you have a very interesting life before Dashbot. Can you share us a little bit about your background and your journey to Dashbot?
Yeah, sure, Alice. I appreciate that. And yeah, so I've switched paths quite a few times actually. I started out with a PhD in chemical engineering, and I was doing chemical reaction science on surfaces for many years, in addition to my postdoc in Europe. And then I switched gears. I was doing some professional tutoring for a couple of years, and then I finally settled on what I really love is software engineering, and I've been doing conversational AI and helping to develop that platform here at Dashbot, and just been the last couple of years also been traveling around the world while doing that, and currently set up in Sao Paulo, Brazil.
Cool. Thank you so much for sharing that. I just thought it was so fascinating, like your whole journey to get to here in not only conversational data, but also the engineering world. So I remember when I first met you, I asked you what your favorite thing is that you're working on, and you said flows. And this is real. I have this memory when I first met Ben, and here we are. We're here in a webinar all about flows, and I was truly blown away when I first saw it. Before we show everyone, can you tell us, Ben, why flows was the first one to come to your mind?
Yeah, sure. So aside from it being the thing I was working on at the time and really putting all of my effort into, I feel like it's at the core of what we are at Dashbot, or one of them. And we're a conversational data platform. And what Flows does is it gives you a visual representation of essentially all of the conversations that your bot stores and that you share with us. So you're able to see all the paths and how it's all connected. And it's really unique because we've tailored it's essentially a Sankey diagram like they have out there, but it's specifically tailored to conversational data.
Cool. Well, I'm really excited to show everyone. What do you think? Henry, Ben, are we ready to show everyone flows?
All
Let's
right,
do it.
let's do it.
Yeah. All right.
I
Well, I'm
mean,
going to stop sharing
mhm.
and go ahead and share.
Yeah, just 1 second. Share. And then I should be on this screen here. All right. Hopefully you all can see my screen. So we're looking at a lot of stuff here. So what we're seeing here is essentially, this is the flows diagram, and we're using a Sankey diagram to represent that. And we're basically looking at this particular configuration is showing essentially your entire bot's conversation, a little bit distilled down in the sense that we have filters applied to this so that you're at each step along the conversation, you're only seeing the top 5 or 6 nodes, and in this case, they're intents, bucketing messages that way. So from the left side, you're seeing basically the first message in all of the conversations over the date range here. And as you can see, as you go from left to right, you're successively moving from conversation turn to the next. And so you can see in this particular view, you see the intents bucketed, and the paths represent the amount of users that are going between each intent. And a couple of things I'll point out with this that's quite unique that we've tailored specifically to conversational data is that we have this filtering here. One thing I'll note is that a lot of bots, they'll have many, like hundreds or thousands of intents. And so this particular filtering allows us to, like, by default only show the top 5, and it buckets the rest. So it really allows you to see the top kind of stuff that's happening. And I've just chosen to show, like, from the beginning, what are the first 10 turns of all the conversations that you have. And another thing I'll point out that many people ask for is, like, they'll look at a particular node and they'll be very interested in what happened before you hit movie request at this node. And one thing they would ask is, well, what do those conversations look like to dive deeper? And so we have on all of the nodes, you can actually click on the transcripts and you get a view of of all of the transcripts that led up to that particular node.
This is super cool. Thank you so much for sharing, Ben. I'm a total geek about this because being in the data world, I know how difficult this is to do, especially with conversational data. So beyond bots, this is all of your conversational data, no matter what source it comes from, to capture your entire journey, depending on the intents, as Ben had shown. So next, Ben, can you share how this was done?
Yeah, sure. That's a great question. So this particular setup was very simplified. It's just showing the first 10 turns on a particular step. So flows, we have definitions of, or we have the concept of a step definition. And I currently only have one defined, but you can put multiple here. But I'll just explain what we have here. So the first step that we're kind of targeting is just saying, here's the condition that we're choosing the first step, which is just the incoming property on the message can be either false or true, which is just another way of saying, give me all of the messages at the very start of all the conversations. And then this particular thing is just saying from that particular target down here at step A, just give me 10 additional steps or 10 additional conversation turns that are directly in sequence one after the other. So this is one concept that we can do. So this idea of the step definition and then the steps before and directly after. But there actually is, as I alluded to before, another kind of feature of this, of flows, where you can actually do something like akin to like a business funnel. So if you go from step A to step B to step C, we actually don't care what happens in between the step definitions that you have defined, but we just want to say, hey, of the people that hit movie request sometime later that have hit choose theater, again, we don't care how many messages happen between, just that it happens afterwards. And then additionally, you ask how many people eventually reached location supplied. And so you can see from this diagram, it's essentially a funnel from the numbers. In addition, we can also just give you directly what you would expect from a business funnel. You'd probably be more familiar with seeing this kind of diagram as a funnel. And so you just have the same kind of step definitions up in the configuration, where we just have movie request as the condition. For step A, step B is the choose theater and location supplied. And notice we didn't define any of the show before or after, because we actually weren't concerned with what happens directly after or before each of the steps.
Super cool. So for me, this looks truly simple and intuitive for me to just go in there and configure as a business user. Now, I know I've never seen anything like this before in the industry, but can you tell me a little bit about why this may be hard to create from a technical and coding level?
Yeah, that's a great question. So as I alluded to before, this is a sand key diagram. There's other tools, commercial tools that have sand key, but the trick with producing this is actually making the data that allows you to produce the sand key. And for conversational data and messages in particular, there's a lot of splicing the messages together one after the other to create the sessions, and specific targeting that you have to do with things like window functions. So the SQL that you have to write is fairly advanced just to get the data. And then the front end in particular, as I've mentioned, is very tailored to conversational data. And if you just used a traditional sand key, generally speaking, you wouldn't have this filtering idea and some of the other features, just the kind of visual features we have here. But the filtering, as I mentioned, allows you to really narrow down and allow you to see the topmost nodes that are hit, rather than just, it's kind of a spaghetti mess otherwise.
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you so much, Ben, for sharing. This is why I love what we do here at Dashbot. It's about thinking differently and sharing what we learned so that others can take advantage of this versus building something like this from scratch. So thank you so much to the entire engineering team and Ben. And with that, we'll move on to the next section. So thank you, Ben. I'm going to share my screen again. Please bear with me. Here we go. All right. Can you see my screen?
Yep.
Right. Well, we saw flows, and now I'm so excited to have Henry on here to kick us off in how to do all of this, what you just saw. So Henry, go
Awesome.
for it.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you first off for sharing, Ben. Always amazing to see the flow feature in action, and always makes my brain buzz thinking about the different applications and use cases. And so, before we jump into this next section, I do want to put out another poll for the group here. Based off of what we just learned through the fireside chat with Ben and Alice, we're curious, how clearly can you identify the user journeys in your work today? Right? We have a scale of 0 to 5 here. 0 is maybe you're not looking or considering user journeys at all. And then 5 is you have a very clear visualization, an idea on how to use them. Because in our next section here, I do want to give a few concrete examples on how our customers today are leveraging user journey data to be able to help them build better conversational experiences. And so just want to get a gauge from the group here, where you're currently at. And yeah, let's give it a few more seconds and we can close it up. Alrighty, let's take a look. And it definitely looks like everybody's somewhere in the middle of the pack here, right? I think it's great that it's not, no one answered not applicable. I think we can all agree that there is some level of importance to everybody's work. And I'm glad that, we're all at different stages of maturity along this journey of building out this new type of data. And so that being said here, I'm going to close up the poll and we can go ahead and jump into our next section, which, I do want to be able to provide an example of a workflow or a process on how we apply and look at user journeys and how it can make an impact with your work today. I know a lot of you in the chat today are probably conversation designers, right? We spend a lot of time looking at conversations, reading transcripts, looking through data, and today's session, we want to introduce how does user journeys play a role? How does it allow you to work faster, potentially even work smarter, and then lead to bigger results and impact? And so I do want to break it out into what I think are 3 simple steps to get you there. And if we were to hop onto the next slide, let's go ahead and jump into step 1 here, which is, when we start to think about even application of user journeys, we need to start with what is that metric, that KPI, or that business goal we're trying to hit within your conversational experience. In last month's webinar, we focused on the metrics and tying metrics to business KPIs. This is a few slides just taking from that. And the 2 examples I pulled are using escalation rate and what we call the not handled or fallback rate, right? Very key metrics if you're working on bots or conversational AI today, because it allows you to measure potential ROI of the bot or also the accuracy of your experience. And so here, once we have your metric defined, you understand it's important to hit your business goals. It's important to also keep track and a trend of that metric over time. And the reason for this is it allows you to start understanding like where you need to prioritize your time and your efforts for each week. Let's say, for example, your escalation spikes, the number of percentage of escalated users goes up. It's a signal to you and your team that some work needs to be done here, right? Maybe the bot is failing to deliver, it's failing to self-serve, or potentially there's new use cases that are emerging that you don't support yet today, right? So again, different signals here point at the fact that you need to begin focusing on this metric. And the question really is like, okay, you see your escalation going up. How do you get started? Right? A lot of you may jump directly into the transcripts, but as you can imagine, this is a very small bot with 631 users. If you're scaling this to an enterprise level or it's for your enterprise support bot, like can easily reach tens or hundreds of thousands of transcripts. And so how is that scalable, right? If you're just going directly to the transcripts, and that's where the user journeys start to play a very big role to allow you to become more data driven and then focus on the key areas that will lead to the biggest levels of impact. And so let's go ahead and jump into this next slide. I want to break this out into two sections here, right? So on the left side, actually, before I jump into the left visual here, what we're doing is we're actually, now that we're focused on the escalation metric, right? The goal is to start to understand what are the different user journeys that led to a user eventually escalating. And so again, if your current process is just going into all the transcripts and reading about all the escalations, that simply isn't scalable. Where we're applying the user journey here is to start to give you context around where did the user actually start in the bot journey, where are they going, where are they hitting a pain point, a challenge, or a bottleneck, and then at one point are they escalating. Right. And so again, back to this visual on the left side here, this is a list of the different intents that have led to escalation. And we're ranking these different intents by volume and aka by messages and users. So we're starting to understand which use cases that should be self-serve are somehow ending up failing and requires the user to have to talk to a human. So it starts to give you again more context and a signal that you need to focus more on these particular intents and use cases. Again, whether that's by adding in more training data, whether you need to break it out to a separate intent, we're starting to get a little bit more of that context around where is this happening and potentially even why is this happening. And then in this right side visual here, we actually show you the exact user journeys or their intent paths that end up with an escalation taking place. This is also showing the exact counts of the users and the conversations that have gone through these exact paths. So again, you focus on the paths that you can fix where, let's say, 100 users have gone through rather than the ones where only a handful, like 1 to 3 users have gone through. And so as we look through some of these paths, I'm not sure if you can all see them, but the point of looking at these different user journeys and paths is, again, to focus and prioritize your time on the journeys that can be even fixed and prevented from escalations into the future. Right? A path where a user starts on the bot, says hello, immediately escalates. That's not really preventable, right? That human was asking to escalate immediately. But on the flip side, there's another path here where I have a user hitting 3 not handled intents in a row. That's a lot more interesting, right? There we can find some use cases we don't support or potential new training data. So I want to dig into this subset of transcripts where I can extract the learning that can further impact the future performance of my bot. And so what we can do here, as Ben had showed us earlier, for any specific journey that we've identified, we can expose the exact transcripts that follow that journey. And so if we hop into this next slide here, the transcript is what we consider to be the source of truth here at Dashbot, right? It gives you the exact back and forth and the full context between the user and the other side of that conversation. And so as an example, we can now see and get clarity around what was sent that triggered the not handled. We can understand the real root causes and the reasons why someone was unable to self-serve and required a human to have to step in the loop. And those reasons can really boil down to a number of different things, right? Whether it was an incorrect response on your end, whether it was a mismatched intent, lack of training data, or a use case that's currently out of scope. There's a lot of these great learnings that can be applied directly back into your experience. And you're only going to really amass these different learnings if you focus and you prioritize your time on the ones that will make the biggest impact, especially to the metrics and the KPIs that are relevant to your business goals. And so that is pretty much it in a nutshell, right? I know we went through a lot, and we do have one more poll to wrap up this session here. And so now that you've seen, with the application of flows as a visual from Ben, and then you've seen a more concrete example of how to utilize user journeys in your work today, I'm curious to learn which of these is the biggest priority for you, right? Like given what you're doing with user journeys today and potentially new things that you've seen and you've learned today, like what is still a priority? And is there anything can become a brand new priority based off of new features or new capabilities that you now know are available? Righty, just a few more seconds here. Yep, that was an easy guess for me. That is going to be all of the above because I feel the same way, right? I see every time I see engineers push out a brand new feature, all I can think about is what are all the different ways I can use this new feature or tool to solve all the different types of challenges that I hear about in this industry. And I do agree that all of these options up above are valid. And so yeah, excited to get to know everybody's projects a little bit better, potentially connecting with you all on separate conversations to learn about your projects and how we could potentially help. But just to wrap up a few things, we have a few minutes left here. We did want to leave a little time at the end for Q&A. And so I believe the chat is fixed here. So if anybody has any outstanding questions that they want answered, feel free to type it in the chat, right? Ben and I can help answer anything while we are on the line today. But otherwise, if you have any more specific questions, I will be leaving my email here in the chat, and we will be sending up a quick webinar follow-up and recap. You can always connect with anybody from the team here at Dashbot.
Thank you so much, Henry. Okay, no chat. It was Henry dropping his email for everyone. We do have a question here. And how are the intents determined?
Yep. So I can start with that, right? Maybe Ben, you can chime in as well. But the intents that you're seeing in the examples we provided, right? Like these were essentially integrations that we've done with current, I would say, conversational interfaces. And if your conversational interface is being powered by an NLP engine, let's say like a Rasa, Dialogflow, Luis, Lex, we are actually getting those intents directly from your own NLP engine and NLP model. So, we're not doing intent naming or intent labeling on our side. We are collecting the intents labeled by your model. And there's a reason for that, right? Like I've always said that the best NLP model is the one that's really fitted and trained on your business's like customer voice. Every customer voice is different. Every audience is different. You speak in your own jargon, your own lingo for your business. And so there's a reason why we don't create our own NLP here at Dashbot. Our focus is on providing the platform and the capabilities to really help you train and enhance your model that's catered to your customer voice.
Great. All right, we got to thank you. Thank you for joining. Are there any other questions? All right, Lindsay, was there anything else that we missed maybe in the Q&A? All right. Well, with that, we are going to close out right on time, actually. Thank you, everyone, for joining. From everyone here at the Dashbot team here, if you have any questions, and if you would like to chat with us and one of our experts, please reach out to us. Henry has his email in the chat here. And we're so excited to hear from you and hear what your journey has been like. And we will send out the recording, as Henry mentioned. So until next time, hope you all have a great week. Thank you, everyone.
Awesome. Thank you, everyone. Take care.
See you guys. Bye-bye.